It's a great way also to get FaceTime with your sheriff. Your sheriff's department is always very happy to come out. Even your sheriff himself may show up because he needs votes in order to stay in office. I'll be using this security watch in my neighborhood. Use each meeting to build your neighborhood organization. Information about your neighbors is a great tool. Information can be gained by conversations. Be careful about doing things like recording their conversations without their knowledge. If they would find that out, that would be very bad. It's difficult for me, I know, to remember everything I've been told, especially when you're in a large group and meeting people. But I try to make time to jot some things down on my Palm Pilot or my BlackBerry, whatever I'm using at the time. Take the opportunity to ask your neighbors about their hobbies, their children's ages, their names. You can do this one family per afternoon for a month and gather a great amount of friends, even if you did it just door to door. People love it when you take an interest in them. Be careful on how much you impact their time, perhaps contacting them by the phone first, just to prepare for your arrival. Some folks won't even answer the door if the house isn't totally spotless. My wife is one of them. Once you find common interest, ask the parties separately if they don't mind you sharing their interests with another. If they say yes, you've tied the neighborhood together with friendship. This is a great way to introduce families like situations where they can help each other. Your value to them and your influence in their lives grows each time you facilitate their success. Being genuine, showing concern, empathy, and being helpful and generous with your time. Congratulate new parents. Send sympathy cards to those that have suffered the loss of a loved one. Take food over when it's helpful. Be a facilitator and assist them in any way you can. The person you're helping will always be more attentive to what you have to say on any subject. There are probably some people in the neighborhood you don't care for, or people that don't care for you. Mend these fences as best you can. You don't want someone working against your efforts within the neighborhood. Perhaps begin your outreach program with these people. Let them see your helpful spirit first so they don't sabotage your efforts later. Never bash a political personality, even if you feel the person you're speaking with would agree with your comment, but rather point out verifiable facts, allowing your neighbors to draw their own conclusions. Bashing a political icon will come back to haunt you through the mouths of those that heard it. They'll inevitably paint you as a hater of politician X to the liberal in the neighborhood that voted for him or her, eliminating your ability to reach them. Never argue. Ask questions instead. As your friendship and respect progresses, there will be opportunities to bring up political matters and discussions. There will always be those with differing opinions. Remember, all the most people have is the major media for their understanding of current events. Never argue, but rather ask the question. Education in constitutional concepts will provide a basis to clearly see and interpret all political positions. When debating politics will only cause a barrier and keep you from reaching your friends with constitutional education. In the 6th century, Sun Tzu wrote in The Art of War, "Never go to battle without the preparation to afford a victory." If you're not up on a subject being discussed, just listen. Ask legitimate questions, and if the position of your adversary is flawed, it will probably begin to unravel without your help. If you haven't said something that cost you your credibility, you can address your friend's erroneous positions later. Once you lose your credibility by speaking of things you know nothing about, it will take way too long to recover your reputation to be of any use. Your reputation is your greatest tool. Protect it with everything you have. Asking a question shows the other party that you respect their opinion. And at the same time, your question puts them at a logical disadvantage if their position is not reasonable. One example, if my neighbor said, "I'm so glad Obama is spending money to help the economy." First, you have to resist choking them. Well, one possible answer, where's the money he's spending coming from? Or, how's that really helping us? Or, don't government jobs cost us higher taxes? Do you know what causes inflation? What will happen to the value of your savings if inflation goes unchecked? How will we have enough to retire on? Will our children have to pay off this debt? This is when you can also add something about the Constitution. One example might be, I recently studied the U.S. Constitution and I didn't find anything authorizing the federal government to loan money to a private business. Bring every possible political discussion back to the Constitution. When you comment on your recent constitutional education, there might be an opportunity to interest them in the next class. Never give away too much. I know I've been guilty of this myself, giving away large sums of documents and books to people in hopes that they'll read it. But it never works. It just never has worked for me. What you're really seeking are questions. Questions are the door opening to education. A question is the gas cap coming off. Small amounts of information that are provocative can bring about questions. One example, and please, I'm not picking on you. Did you know that the United States is not a democracy? This one almost always starts a discussion. Don't lecture, just answer the questions. And maybe you can add a comment about a related subject. If they ask another question, the tank's not full. You'll be able to tell when they want more information. You feed babies with a small spoon and you wait until they've swallowed before you give them another. With careful feeding, they grow quite fast. Quote the founders. Memorize quotations of the founding fathers. This does two things. It gives you the educational credibility as well as teaches the constitutional concept to the hearer. Use this only when the quotation is appropriate because you want them to respect your education and not just think you're showing off. We can use the ICRC forum as a place to share appropriate quotations for different situations. The founding fathers will convince someone of the benefits of a constitutional republic before you ever will. It's up to us to bring the founding fathers to the discussion. If you can't memorize, put some in your wallet or purse to refer to. I think we might come up with a top 20 list or something and put on our website. Perhaps some of these might make the list. Your neighbor speaks of a favorite political personality and how they trust him or her. In questions of power, let no more be heard. Confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. Thomas Jefferson. In discussions on the Patriot Act, for security, even nations that love liberty must build institutions that tend to destroy their civil and political rights. To be safer, they will risk being less free. Federalist Paper number 8. Then follow up perhaps with Benjamin Franklin's famous quote, "Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Maybe your neighbor thinks that gun control is a reasonable thing. The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is a last resort to protect themselves against tyranny and government. Thomas Jefferson. And this is a good follow-up. An unarmed man can only flee from evil, and evil is not overcome by fleeing from it. Colonel Jeff Cooper. Your neighbor may say those militia guys are a bunch of scary kooks. A militia, when properly formed, are in fact the people themselves and include all men capable of bearing arms. Richard Henry Lee. Additional letters from the federal framer, 1788. Discussions on the sheer volume of government. You could bring this up. My reading of history convinces me that most bad government results from too much government.